Okay, welcome to week 16, day 2. Today is not going to be really a full lecture. It's just going to be a couple notes on things. It's the day before Thanksgiving. We'll just kind of have some fun, answer some questions after the recording's over, things like that. First, couple big announcements. The last homework assignment, Java Rainfall, is due next Friday. There's going to be some final competency exams coming out. I just posted the competency exam for classes in the previous section. That's due a week from today. The last Zybooks is going to be due on Monday. Then no more Zybooks till 41. I did have like 6 alumni come in the previous section, and they gave some advice, and I want to summarize that for you right now, which is keep trying. Like even when you're not like programming, like especially during winter break, there's some websites you can go to where you can practice your stuff. LeetCode is one that like a lot of people use to prep for like job interviews and things like that. It might be a little bit hard for you right now as a CSI 40 student, but like some of the easier questions you can probably do. Medium questions really require you to have CSI 41 under your belt, and then CSI 26 for the harder ones. So there's LeetCode, that's one website. There's HackerRank, which is another one. And there is, and I'll post all these onto Canvas. And then there's finally like Code Wars, and I shouldn't say finally, there's a lot of websites like this. The nice thing about Code Wars is that you can join the Clovis Community College team, and you can see how you stack up against other current students and alumni here. And I'll post all the links for that into Canvas for you. So these are all things you should probably practice over break. For Thanksgiving, I am doing a special Thanksgiving Day amnesty. So if you have any low scores at all during the semester on a programming assignment, I will add up to 10 points to your programming assignment score if you learn Python. Okay, over the break. So Python is not a difficult language to learn. You might be like, what? We learned Java on Monday, and now we're learning Python? Yeah. And that's something that I'm actually doing deliberately, is that as you become more experienced as computer science people, you can actually pick up new languages more and more quickly. The first one's always the hardest because you have to wrap your mind around, all right, what is a if statement? How do I use them? And how do I use loops and things like that? Once you start developing that understanding, learning a new language is just a matter of like, okay, how do they do this thing in this language? And so whenever I learn a new language, I always look at the 6 pillars of computer science. How do I make a variable? How do I do algebra? How do I do input and output? How do I make a branch? An if statement, if else, that kind of stuff. How do I do a loop, for loop, while loop, whatever? How do I make a function? And once I got those 6 things down, I know the language basically. And so like I learned R, I don't know, a couple of years ago at this point, like probably 3 or 4 years ago at this point. And that's just my approach towards learning a language. And then everything after that is basically details. Okay, well, how do I do a vector? Okay, how do I make a class? Then not all languages support classes, So are you going to turn in the completion cert? Yeah. So you can see right here, there is a XP bar. You can see it is worth a total of 10,200 XP. And so what you have to do is you have to log in on this. Okay. And if you don't log in and you do it, you're going to be sad because it doesn't save your progress. So you need to log in and you have to create a Microsoft account. And I apologize for that, but it's also deliberate. And the reason why I'm choosing Microsoft for this learning Python thing is because, half the world uses Microsoft, right? And I'm very much a Linux guy, a Unix guy, and I do all of my serious development work on Linux, Unix, and I know all the tips and tricks and ins and outs and internals of the of how all that stuff works on the Linux side of things. On Microsoft, I've done coding in Visual Studio before. I use VS Code when I do coding here on my Windows machine. But I'm not like a master at it. And so the other purpose of this assignment is to get you experience at doing development on a Microsoft system. And so even if you have a Mac or something like that, you can still do it because VS Code is cross-platform. So what you're going to do is you're going to be making these things called Jupyter Notebooks. They're very popular in the UC system. I think they were developed at UC Berkeley. And they're like these interactive notebooks with code that you can like click on and it runs the code right there inside of the page. And you have like these, you can embed here. I'll show you. Since I was talking about it. So it runs you through installing Python. installing VS Code, installing the extensions. So there's screenshots for all this stuff that you can run through. How do you create a notebook? And yeah, there's the Markdown language that's talking about create runnable code. And then when you get it working, you have these like blocks of like code, and then you can just click like play on them, and it like runs that little bit of code. And so like this little bit of code, if this was inside of a Jupyter notebook, would actually generate a graph or something like that. And then if you change the data, you know, like if you change maybe the code, or if you change the data that the code is running on, you hit run again, then the graph will update. And it's really cool. So it's very interactive and things like that. This is extremely common in data science. And data science is a burgeoning field, lots of jobs in it. So this is a valuable skill to learn over Thanksgiving. And so this will teach you the Microsoft way of doing things. If you miss having Vim inside of your VS Code, let's see. There we go. Popping up. So if you run VS Code, it's a nice text editor. Like I don't hate it in the slightest. Pull it over here. Over on the left-hand side of VS Code, there is the file explorer, and you can like open a folder and like all of the let's see, where's a good thing? Sure, that one. Why not? And then you can see all the different CPP files will appear inside of there. And you can like click on one, and it pulls up on here. Would you like to configure the project? Not now. Thank you very much. Go away. Go away. Go away. Okay. And so you can like click on the different files, and like the different files will pop up, and you can like close those tabs if you want. Source control connects to GitHub automatically, and then you can just like commit changes you made to it and push it back up. So you like clone a project, and all of it just is integrated really nicely with Visual Studio Code. I don't like calling it Visual Studio Code. I think it's a terrible name, because Visual Studio is an IDE, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. An IDE is this big, heavyweight program that does everything. You can compile your program inside of it. You can run your program inside of it. It has the makefile. All this stuff is inside of an IDE. VS Code is really just a text editor, but it's got these really nice plugins where it can just like connect to GitHub and upload and download things automatically. You can set up a debugger to run. It doesn't have a debugger, but you can set up a debugger to run. And then here's Jupyter Notebooks, right? Live shares, so you can collaborate on a file together. But the main thing I wanted to show you was the extensions thing here. And what you're going to do for this assignment is you are going to install the Python extension. So you click on that and you click install. Mine's obviously installed already. And you install the Jupyter notebooks, things like that. But here's a pro tip. If you like Vim, and you should at this point in your career, there is in fact a Vim extension for Visual Studio Code. And so let me turn that on, then go back over here, and then you can see I can DD, and it deletes the line. U to undelete it, 5P, paste it 5 times. And so it's not a perfect emulation of Vim. There are some more obscure things that it doesn't support, but it's pretty good. And by and large, you can use right angle, right bracket, 3 right bracket, indents 3 lines. You can use Vim mode inside of VS Code, so it's great. Like I have no hate for VS Code, even though I'm not super impressed by Microsoft as a company. VS Code's actually kind of nice. So this will run you through installing VS Code. It'll run you through installing the extensions, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to kind of introduce you to a whole new world, to quote Aladdin. So as you go through it, it's going to ask you to answer quiz questions, and when you get them right, then you get XP. Again, you have to be signed in, or it will not remember that, and you will be very sad. This whole thing is supposed to take about 4 hours to do. You probably blow through it a little bit faster than that, but at the end of it, you're going to know Python. So Python's not a hard computer language to learn. It's not all of Python. There's more to Python than what is in this learning module here, but it's a really nice introduction to Python in the context of data science. And so you can see it's going over for loops and strings and ands and ors and that kind of stuff. So there's more to Python than this. Don't think that this is all of Python, but it'll be a really nice introduction. And now you'll have another language you can slap down onto your resume. I know C++, Java, and Python, and just hope that they don't ask you any difficult questions on Java or Python. So, yeah. And so when you finish, all these things will be filled in, and so you just screenshot it. Just show that you did it, and you get one of your zeros turns into a hero. So any zero, basically it's 10 points added to your programming grade. So almost every student in this class has not gotten 100% on the homework. So you're basically just going to pick a homework assignment that you didn't do well on and tell me, and that one gets boosted to a 10. If it's a 20 pointer, you only get 10 points. Sorry, it doesn't give you 20 points on the homework. So that's basically the announcement for today. I was going to show you Visual Studio, like the full thing. And so I'm going to show you, it looks different. Studio 2022. So let's create a new project and, okay, come on. Visual Studio, console app. Let's do that. Let's see. Hello World. Sure, why not? Let's do that one. So we will call this one Delete Me. And there we go. And so you can see here in Visual Studio, this is not VS Code, this is Visual Studio, the full version. And it's really confusing because Visual Studio Code has no connection to Visual Studio. It's like Java and JavaScript. There's no actual connection between them. And Visual Studio has different branding. There's like Visual Studio Community, Visual Studio Professional, Visual Studio Enterprise. So you would think Visual Studio Code is just a different version of Visual Studio, and it's not. It's a completely different product, which is why you hear me refer to it as VS Code instead of Visual Studio Code, because it's not Visual Studio. Okay, and you can see there's all sorts of things inside of here. Like, this is a huge program. Learning it is, it takes a really long time to learn Visual Studio. And so you'd see that this made a hello world for us. And over on the left-hand side here, you can see it made a file called deleteme.cpp. There's dependencies. These are all the header files that are being used. And you can look at those if you care, which I don't right now. I'm going to make a new function called integer, foo, whatever. It's going to return 42. You can see it automatically puts in the closed curly brace for you, like I usually type by default. And then I can type std : cout left arrow foo std : end line. It doesn't do the using namespace standard by default. And then we can save that. And then if we hit run here, it will compile the code for you. And you can see down here, it compiled fine. And then over on a different monitor, it ran the program. And so you can see it printed out hello world, and then printed out 42. And then it's waiting for you to hit space or whatever, and then it clears. So this is kind of the process you'd go through for taking like a homework assignment for our class if you want to run it in Visual Studio. And I have students every semester do this, right? Like they just, like they're Microsoft people, right? And they're like, this, I feel more comfortable, at using the Microsoft development environment than all this Unix stuff. And it's fine. Like, okay, fine. Take the homework assignment, put it on here, and 64-bit mode, 32-bit mode, like whatever, like knock yourself out. The extensions are non-compatible between the two of them. So Visual Studio Code extensions don't work in Visual Studio and vice versa. They're completely different products. But basically, if you want to learn Visual Studio, like, more power to you. I'm not a fan of it, but it does do some nice things. Like you can see here, I added a new function, so the new function appeared here. You can switch between different files. I mean, I've used it when I did Quake development. You'd use Visual Studio Delta projects and things like that. It's just kind of a really, I don't want to say it's poorly designed. There's just some decisions that make it just a little bit harder to use. Like if you want to set up, like if you want to link a library in Linux, you just -L the library name, and here there's like you have to like find like project settings somewhere, source control. There's like a huge amount of settings, and somewhere within there's like libraries. No, linker options maybe. General, no, I don't know. Somewhere within there's a settings to like link in a library and things like that, and setting up the folders that are looked at for include files and for libraries and things like that. It's not an insurmountable problem. It's just buried like 6 layers deep in something that is just very straightforward to do in Linux. So there's just aesthetic issues like that I kind of take issue with, but it's it's not bad in the sense like it doesn't work right or is buggy. It's just I just kind of have issues with how the information is presented. So what's my favorite IDE to use? Unix. So the Unix operating system is actually an IDE, and a lot of people don't think of it this way, right? But like here you are on the server, and let's say I go into like the Quake directory, and I go into the source directory, custom source, like that. Okay. And I want to find every place within Quake where the word door appears. Now, inside of VS Code, and again, I'm calling it VS Code, I'm going to have to spell it out as Visual Studio Code. Actually, I can probably do this a little bit quicker if I come over to Quake, Fortress, Source Code. Okay. If I right-click on this and choose Open with Code, then that opens the whole directory in VS Code, which is nice. And so it just boom, easy. Like I said, I don't hate VS Code. I actually kind of like it. And so like in VS Code, if I wanted to find every place within the source code where the word door appears, like I'm making a mod of Quake, and I'm gonna like mess with the doors or something. Like maybe the doors just all vanish or something. Like you want to have some sort of like free for all like mode, and you don't want people to be able to hide between locked doors, behind locked doors, and things like that. Then I can just search for door here. I click on the little magnifying glass, and then this is every place where the word door appears anywhere within the source code. Okay, and you can click on it and it jumps to that line and things like that. Inside of Unix, which is an IDE, you run a command, and so there's a command called grep, which is like search across files. And we will search case insensitive for the word door and all .qc files. And there you go. And so if you want to show the line numbers, you can turn that on too. It's a flag. It requires a little bit more training. There's a bit more of a learning curve to use it, but it's far more flexible. Like the find in files here for VS Studio has case sensitivity on or off. It's got whole word on and off. And you can use regular expressions, but grep has like ridiculous amounts of options for it. So you can say like invert match, like find everybody that doesn't match the word door. Find things. There's just ridiculous amounts of options you can do to search through files. And so like whenever you work with a GUI, which is a graphical user interface like this, you're sort of limited to whatever buttons they make, right? So they have a button for case sensitivity, they have a button for whole word, and then they're like, well, beyond that, you'll need to learn regular expressions, which grep supports also, right? So when you use the command line, you have far more power, but there's a bigger learning curve to it. And so I think Unix is worth it because you can do things in just a few keystrokes that take people that have to use the mouse like a long time to do. So, so Unix is my favorite IDE. This, look, I can compile things, I can debug things, I can run things, I can search through things. It's got a text editor. Unix itself is a development environment. That's actually what Unix was made for. Unix was made for programmers. It was made for people who are doing software development as a way of them organizing their actions and organizing their files, and being able to synchronize development with other groups and things like that. Unix is an integrated development environment. So that's my answer. Unix. Other IDEs I've used Eclipse and I don't know, IntelliJ, I don't know, whatever. Not very much though. So I was using Eclipse about half a year ago, I guess. Visual Studio is fine. It's just a giant thing, and there's kind of it is what it is. It's a large product. VS Code's a lot lighter. It's a lot faster to launch and things like that. I was learning HTML in Visual Studio. It was nice. Yeah. Okay. So that's basically our lecture for today. Learn Python and make up a missing homework assignment is the shot. If you have any questions about Java, again, your first thing should just be like, how do I do this thing in C++ in Java? There is that spoiler file that I gave you that basically has one-to-one conversions for C++ into Java. Just take a look at that first before you do anything else. You've already written Rainfall, hopefully. Hopefully that wasn't one of the ones you skipped. It's not a hard assignment. So you guys got till next Friday to do it. No, that's basically it for today. Any questions? It's the day before Thanksgiving. Do we use zyBooks in 41, and would it make sense to extend the zyBooks? We do use zyBooks in 41. I wouldn't extend it because the zyBooks in 41 includes the textbook for 40. So I redid the zyBooks textbook a couple of weeks ago when I was reordering the book orders for next semester, and it should have everything from 40 in it plus some other stuff. Don't quote me on that because, like I said, this was a new thing that I was working with them on putting together. But you shouldn't lose any information if you go from 40 into 41. So don't bother extending it. It's a different textbook, but they copied over a lot of the chapters from the 40 textbook into the 41 textbook. So for the extra credit, it is going to be due by Monday. That is correct. You have until Monday to spend 4 hours of your life learning a new programming language that will allow you to add something to your resume and make yourself look good. What is the extra credit number? So, you know how I said some of the alumni came in the 12 o'clock section. One of them put his phone number up and put a note. I can send you a screenshot on Discord saying if you need help, send me a text message here and I'll answer any question. If you do send him a message, you should not expect to get good. You should not expect to get a good answer on it. It's mostly a joke. It's a way for you to get an extra credit point. Let's put it that way. So he sent me back. I sent him a text to the number, and he sent me back a picture of Joseph Stalin making a heart. So don't expect a serious response on it. It's just a free extra credit point. He's a very humorous guy. He sends basically memes back to everybody. So ask him a question about stoy, string to integer, and you're going to get a picture of, I don't know, Stalin or something. I don't know. So, Kearney, I did not dox him. That was up on the whiteboard in the class. So, you just text him a question, any question you want. I'm pretty much going to guarantee you're not going to get a serious response on it. So have fun with it. Just be like, how do I set up my classes with public and private? And you're probably going to get a meme back in response. So, I love this class. Yeah, we have fun. We have fun. So, like I said, they came in and they talked about what were their life lessons, like don't give up, ask for help. That was actually where that came from, right? Be sure to ask for help if you have trouble. A lot of students, especially coming out of high school, have trouble asking for help when they get stuck on things. And in computer science, you will get stuck. You are going to get stuck. You are absolutely going to have some circumstance at some point in your career. It's probably happened already where you have no idea what to do. And that's the point where you have to reach out to somebody and message Tristan and ask him how to do Bank of Keith, and you will get a meme in response. Now, in seriousness, ask on the help center and the tutorial center, things like that. But that was kind of the point that was being made there, if that makes sense to you. Where do I have to submit the screenshots of Python? I'm going to put that up on Canvas as soon as this class is over. It's not up yet. There will be a place where you screenshot you completing the Python course on Microsoft Learn. Yep. Learn Python over Thanksgiving, get extra credit. Yeah. So what else do they say? Network. Make sure that you talk to your classmates and things like that. It's harder for you guys because you're online, but that's one of the reasons why I do like extra credit activities in person, so you get to know people in real life. We like to have fun here. Exactly. Yeah, but networking is really important. About half the jobs that I've gotten have been just because somebody knows that I was looking for a job and they gave me a job. Like I very rarely like apply for a job and go through a screening process and all that kind of stuff. Maybe half of them I did. I'd go in and whiteboard problems and all that kind of stuff. Sure, I've done that. But the reality is like, like let's say that you're working at Twitter right now. You just got laid off from Twitter, right? And one of your friends at like I don't know Pandora is like, hey, I heard Bill just got laid off from Twitter. How would you like a job? We've got an opening on our team we're trying to fill right now, and then they bring you on board, and you bypass. Usually, there's still going to be interviews and things like that, but it bypasses like all of the screen downs and things like that, and the pointless like, can you code FizzBuzz in 15 minutes kinds of things. It's usually more of just like, come in, are you a good fit for our team, that kind of stuff. So in the computer science world, there's a lot of networking, not computer networking, but like people networking, right? So developing people skills, developing the ability to make friends and work with people and talk to them and like keep up with them. Hey, what are you up to? That kind of thing, right? It's actually really important. So yeah, there's Tristan. So Tristan just popped onto Discord. So everybody make sure that you ask him your favorite question. He's very very generously volunteered to answer your questions on text messaging. Okay. Yeah, I think that was about it. Tristan, do you remember any other life lessons that the alumni gave today? Stay positive, work hard, ask for help. Tristan said, keep working even off hours. Like even when you don't have homework to do, you should be grinding. You should be staying on the grind and doing LeetCode and HackerRank and things like that to keep your skills up. It's pretty important. Yep. Anything else, guys? I demand to be president. I demand not to listen to listeners. It's funny. Nice. Yes, I will be uploading the LeetCode. I'll be putting links, especially like when we get closer to the winter break, because that's something I recommend that you guys do during winter break, just to like keep practicing, keep sharp. Like if I haven't coded in a while, then those websites are really good for just kind of like getting the juices flowing again. Be like, oh, okay, all right, yeah, I remember how to program. Yeah, okay, you like start with some easy ones, like kind of work your way up a little bit, and it's how you like stay on the ball, stay on the game. Because honestly, when I was working professionally, like the amount of like difficult programming you do is actually kind of rare. Like I had much harder homework problems than I had in real life. Like I mean they were large, but they weren't hard. If that makes sense. Like there was a lot of work. Like there's just a lot to it, but like nothing individually was difficult. And so like you know programming classes, we would like make our own operating system and we built our own CPU. I've never had to make my own CPU since then. You know what I mean? Like I've never needed to write, a calculus integration program in ones and zeros assembly for a CPU I made. I've never had to do that. That is way not the kind of stuff that I do professionally. I do like stats and like analysis and like I write programs to do quizzes and receive quizzes in databases and database queries and pulling statistical inferences out of them and stuff like that, which is a thing. Like it's work. It's hard and hard-ish, not that hard. But like we don't like doing these like crazy like kinds of things. Bank of Keitho is kind of like reasonable for like real life. Yeah, literally zeros and ones. Like we had to create a block that had 1100 in it. That's our program, and that was fun. That was super fun. Let me tell you how much fun I had with that. That's why I signed right up for computer engineering as a major. I got it to work, but not my cup of tea at all. Should have done Bank of Keith. Yeah, Bank of Keith is actually probably the most realistic homework assignment you're going to have, where you have data going in, you maintain a database of records, you do operations on it, things like who's the richest person, print out a list of transactions, things like that. It's actually pretty close to what you'd be doing in a real life like environment. We weren't saving the accounts to disk, so like you would load account data and then you deposit money and stuff. We didn't actually ever save it to disk because then the input tests wouldn't work, because you'd be corrupting the save files. But in real life, there'd be one more step where like you load the data, you transfer money, then you save it to disk and things like that. And in real life, this would be to an actual database rather than a CSV file, probably, although CSV files are used, for like low-end database kind of stuff. So, you should probably do it. Even like it's gonna sound weird, but like you should probably do it even if you're gonna get no points for it. You should probably do it. Like even if it's like over winter break or something like that. I'm gonna wipe the servers on like January 7th or something like that. So like during winter break, you can actually sit down and do it. Oh, one thing that Myers said that I just remembered. If you're not a computer science major, if you're like a math major or a psych major, and you're like, oh, I just have to take my one semester of computer science, CSci 40. Guess what? The reason why they require one semester of computer science is because computer science is a thing. And one semester of computer science is like one semester of Spanish. It is not enough to like move to, Colombia and like speak Spanish. You know what I mean? Like it's the starting point. If you are a math major, you really, really, really should take CSci 41. Psych majors, maybe not. Psych majors, you can probably get through psych if you're not doing research without a 41. But basically, anybody who has like taken 40, I think you should take 41. Like it's just part 2 to the whole thing. It will, at the end of 40 and 41, you know how to program. If you only do 40 and you're in a major like physics, like requires one semester, and you're like, oh, I'll just take one semester. Guess what happens when you're a junior in physics? It's programming again, And so most physics majors kind of have this really unpleasant surprise because they haven't programmed since their freshman year. And they're now a senior, and it requires like not basic level programming. So that's my little spiel for that. So yeah, math majors, especially like most upper end math, like there's a lot of proofs. There's a lot of computer science in it. So how do you set up the Linux stuff on your computer as a local version of the server? Great question. So the server that I use is called Linode. And so this server here that we all know and love is actually, I've never seen it in real life. It's actually a virtual cloud server. It's run by Akamai now, but the company that they bought out was called Linode. And so you can actually set up your own Linode pretty cheaply. I think the cheapest price is like $5 a month or something like that. It's a dedicated CPU, shared CPU, $5 a month. Yeah, so you can get your own Linux box for $5 a month. I mean, that's a pretty good deal. And so that's like, that's pretty cheap as far as these things go. And then you can get practice on like setting it up. You could install Linux onto your local laptop and things like that and dual boot it. I've done that before. The trouble is that Windows tends to think that it's the only operating system in town. And despite Linux having a 30-something year history of coexisting with Windows, the Windows people just sort of forget that dual boot exists and will occasionally just overwrite the boot record and just, you can't boot into Linux anymore. And recently, actually, Linux had a similar bug where it actually wiped it and made it impossible to boot into Windows. So you can install dual boot onto a Windows machine. I've done it before, and I don't recommend it. I recommend just having separate Windows and Linux boxes. And so you can buy a $5 Linode. Another option you can do is, a little bit of payback. It was funny because, like, for years, like, it's just an ongoing joke where, like, the Windows people are like, did we forget something? I don't know. Push it. And then it, like, wipes, the Linux off the system. There's also VirtualBox. And VirtualBox is another way that you can do this. This will run Linux inside of your... Here, let me see if I can find a picture of it. Yeah. So you can actually have a Linux window inside of Windows. Let's see here. VirtualBox for Windows. Okay. So, let's see. Picture. Come on, picture. You can do it. You can do it. There we go. Okay, so you can see in the background, it's a Windows machine. But VirtualBox is running here, and it's actually got a Linux box running inside of a Windows machine. And so this is a nice sandboxed environment. You can't screw anything up. That's, again, one of the problems with dual booting, is that you're sharing the same hard drive. And so if you're in Linux and you accidentally do an rm-rf / and wipe the whole hard drive, you've wiped your Windows hard drive too, depending on how you have it set up, where the root directories are. And so having a sandboxed environment like this is really nice for beginners. So there's also Windows subsystem for Linux. And so come over here. Let's see here. I've been messing with the right click options. I don't see it now. But yeah, Windows has the ability now. It's called WSL. And the Windows subsystem for Linux allows you to run, Ubuntu or whatever inside of Windows. And so that's another option. It's been around since Windows 10 or something like that. And Windows 11, it's even more tightly integrated into it. So you can just like run things. I've switched off their terrible start menu, but you can either do WSL or you can do VirtualBox. Either way works. VirtualBox is a little safer, I would say, for new people. So if you explode the hard drive is on its own little sandbox hard drive, and you don't kill your PC. That's probably where I would start with that. And then realistically, though, you just want to have a separate Linux box and a separate Windows box when you're at the pro stage. Like I for years, I had underneath my desk a Windows machine and a Linux machine, and I had a KVM switch. And so I just go like this, click, and then my keyboard and my mouse and my monitors all switched from the Windows box to the Linux box, and I do development. And then when I'm ready for video games, I'd click back into Windows and play video games. So, would you recommend dual booting? Sure. I mean, give it a shot. Like, it'll be a learning experience for you. All of these approaches, my answer is just yes. Okay. Get experience with Linux any way you can. If you want to get a Linode, awesome. If you want to run a virtual machine, awesome. If you want to dual boot, awesome. If you want to use WSL, awesome. Like, they're all ways you can get experience at Unix. And really, the more Unix skills you have, the better off you will be. Like, I tell people on the first day, go through the Unix tutorial, and there's always people like halfway through the semester that are like, how do I move a file? And it's like, I know you didn't do the tutorial, like that was on the first chapter, and you're just gonna have a very crippled existence if you don't have the Unix skills that you need. And so the more practice you get with that, the better as well. So that's my rant on that. Shell scripting is good to learn also. This book here, you can probably find for like $5. It's old, but it has like the Unix commands have been pretty stable for the past 40 years. And so it's got a list of every Linux Unix command. If you want to learn how to find files, right? There's the find command, and it has all the command line parameters and things like that. So with examples on how to use it, this is the Mark Sabell book. Mark Sabell, Practical Guide to the Unix System. That is old school. Like this was old when I bought it. I bought it used when I was in college. It's an old book. It like if you look at the colors, it probably dates to the 70s, maybe. Probably not, but like the colors kind of are from the 70s. 1995, this version. What was the first version printed? I don't know. So, yeah, Mark Sabell, Unix Guide. Like I said, you can probably find it for $5. There's plenty of other ways of learning Unix as well. Learn VI. More VI you know, the more shell scripting you know, the more Unix you know, the better off you're going to be. 70s nostalgia. Yeah, it's probably what it is. Like they just had the 70s color scheme with the browns and yellows and golds and things like that. All right. So that's basically it for today, guys. Any other questions? I'm technically are in class for a little bit longer, but all right. I'll just let you guys go early then. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Be good to each other. Be excellent. Drive safe. And make sure that you ask Tristan for help. He will love it. Trust me. All right. Peace, you guys. See you.